They said she couldn't see, but what they didn't know is that she could hear everything. Every secret, every lie, every whisper of guilt. And when justice turned a blind eye, she decided to take revenge in her own way. Emma was 12 when the world went quiet for her. She grew into a young woman who read Braille like others read faces. She learned her neighborhood through sounds, textures, and the smell of evening tea drifting through open windows. Still, there was a silence that never left her, the silence of what had been taken. Years earlier, her brother Daniel had died in a factory collapse. The factory's owner, a man named Richard Kane, had cut corners, bribed officials, and walked free. The courts took years. Evidence vanished like footprints in the rain, and the system failed them. The town learned to forget. Emma did not. She didn't pretend to move on. She listened. For months, she walked the streets with a quiet patience that made people underestimate her. She learned where Kane took his morning coffee, which street his car turned into at dusk, who delivered his mail, and what tune his elderly dog whined when left alone. Her blindness made her sense the world differently, and in that difference, she found strength. She mapped the city not by sight, but by pattern. The cadence of a guard's boots, the hiss of a factory vent, the trace of expensive cologne that marked Kane's path. She began small, a whispered rumor here, a carefully placed leaflet there, exposing fragments of truth about the factory, unpaid overtime, broken supports, falsified safety logs. Emma used voices, an old journalist who owed her family a favor, a young reporter hungry for a big story, and a retired engineer burdened by guilt. She fed them what she had quietly gathered: dates, names, and records. She guided their hands to the right evidence at the right moment. Kane laughed when the first reports surfaced. He still had allies in high places and believed money could smooth anything. He called the allegations lies and hired lawyers to bury the stories. But Emma had something his lawyers could never buy: a chorus. She had organized the workers. At night, she taught them to speak up together. She showed them how to document. When the lights flickered, when scaffolding cracked, when the supervisor vanished mid-shift. She taught them to trust one another's memories and record them in ways that couldn't be erased. She turned silence into strategy. Emma's revenge was not a single act. It was a weaving, a slow tightening of a rope made of truth. One afternoon, when the city council was about to sign a new permit to expand Kane's factory, Emma walked into the meeting with a group of workers and the journalist. She couldn't see the faces staring at her, but she felt the hush of the room, the heat of expectation. Her voice was steady. "My brother died under that roof," she said. "The plans were fake. The wiring was unsafe. I have the testimony of those who worked there, and the engineer's report you ignored when you gave your approval." The room shifted. Papers rustled. Someone coughed. The next morning, the reporter's story ran with a headline that echoed across the city. The engineer's report, which Emma had recovered from one of Kane's former associates, couldn't be buried this time. Inspectors returned. Officials were questioned. Workers who once feared speaking out found courage in each other. Arrests followed: a supervisor for falsifying safety checks, a manager for tampering with records. Kane fought back. He sued, threatened, bribed, and sent men to intimidate the workers. But Emma had never been loud. She had been meticulous. She recorded every threat, mapped every bribe, and tied them all to paper trails. The city watched. People began to hear what she'd always heard: the midnight hiss of the factory, the clank that meant a broken beam. They heard the truth in the workers' stories. The end didn't come with an explosion, but with consequence. Regulators shut the factory down. Kane's expansion was canceled. His assets were frozen. His reputation, once untouchable, collapsed. The workers won compensation for the families who had suffered. The courts couldn't bring back Daniel, but justice, slow and imperfect, finally arrived. Afterward, a small memorial was built beside the old factory, a brick wall with brass plates bearing the names of those who had died. Emma traced each name with her fingers. She didn't seek praise, she only wanted remembrance. A neighbor once said, "You made them pay." Emma smiled. "No," she replied softly. "I made them listen." Years later, the factory reopened under new management and strict oversight. The machines hummed in safer rhythms. The workers walked without fear. Emma still walked her neighborhood, always listening, sometimes smiling at a joke, sometimes pausing to hear the music of the city. Those who once pitied her now sought her advice. Children gathered around as she told stories of maps made by sound and of justice earned through patience. Revenge, Emma learned, isn't always a blow. Sometimes it's a story told clearly enough that the whole world hears and finally changes. If it's Tuesday and past 7, fate brought you here. Hit that subscribe.